Thank you so much, Toby. Welcome and good afternoon. I have been waiting for a really long time to ask this audience one question. How many people are familiar with scope accounting? Hold on, keep them up. So I've asked this question now for about a year. And in the various places I go, I get a lot of blank stares, maybe one or two hands. But this region, as the slide and the data here shows, is supposed to be far out ahead. This region of the world is leading in our journey to net zero, from regulatory perspective, from a technology perspective. And it's so exciting to be here in this region, back in person, to be able to ask that question. If you're not familiar with scope accounting, we're not going to go into too much detail, but what I will simply say, it's a great way to get grounded into understanding what it means to get to net zero. It's a common denominator where all languages and organizations and companies are learning how to count greenhouse gas emissions in a way that provides checks and balances. The one thing you need to know about scope accounting, if you don't already know it, it's that Cisco's Scope 3, we have 3 scopes in scope accounting, is our customers and partners Scope 2. That's how these things are balanced, right? So in order for Cisco, when we say we're going to get to net zero by 2040, and you may be part of companies and organizations that have put your own goals and commitments, in order for us to make those commitments, it has to be done together. So we recently launched an IDC study. We recently got the results back. We launched it quite some time ago. And globally, the data has come back to validate that, yes, in fact, Western Europe is ahead in its importance of sustainability. The biggest driver of that is to do good for the people, the planet, and its employees. So good on you. This region cares about its people, the planet, and its employees. Now, we see more and more organizations making commitments to net zero, making commitments to sustainability. And yet, Accenture came out with a study that said, of all of those organizations, 93% are on track to fail. They're on track to fail because based on their progress to get to net zero by these dates, they're nowhere close to needing to have actionable plans, metrics in place to actually get there. So what does that mean for us today? Cisco feels not only a responsibility, but an obligation at the intersection of sustainability and technology. In the last couple of years, we have continued to ramp up our dedication and our programs and our commitment to sustainability. We've committed to net zero by 2040, which you've hopefully seen in today's keynote. Our goals and our plans have been approved by the Science Based Target Initiative, which is considered one of the gold standards of the industry. We are one of the first technology companies to have our plans approved. We're part of the European Green Digital Coalition. We've put money in Cisco's foundation to specifically go after sustainability in all of adjacent markets and innovations outside of our immediate focus areas so that we can bring everyone along together. And with our Global Problem Solver Challenge and our partner organization, we're investing in solutions, hackathons, programs. This last one recently came out with Rockwell as one of the key innovators on a water leakage detection program, right? So again, where are we solving for in real time with our extended ecosystems and partners? When I think about how does this technology scale, we aim to do one thing in our commitment in our portfolio. And it's to keep it very simple for these ecosystems to bring everyone along because we recognize that everyone is at different stages of this journey. And so I'm going to walk you through 3 key solutions. And these solutions are here to stay. We are building long-term roadmaps against these solutions in our products, in our offers, and how we bring these to market. It's going to take time. So while the innovations inside of these solutions may come out as new and exciting, every time you see us, every event we have, these solutions will stay intact. The first is sustainable data centers. And Jeremy will be here to walk you through in detail what that looks like, and hopefully it's no big question as to why we're starting with sustainable data centers. The second is the built environment and smart buildings and workspaces. And we think about the intersection of hybrid work that we need to enable, the intersection of how we're building, and all the materials that go into creating buildings. There's a lot of opportunity in this space. The third solution is really making sure that in every place of the ecosystem of every layer of the internet, all the way down to the service providers and how we provide internet for the future, that we are looking at every possible place in the network to build sustainable and scalable technology and solutions. Underpinning all of that, of course, are sustainability, our industry solutions and what I'm calling ecosystems. Think about the broader ecosystems that come to play when we start to expand beyond the IT networks to the OT networks and beyond. These ecosystems of partners are newer than what we've seen in the past. Clean tech and all of the expanded additional TAM that we'll start to see becomes very, very interesting when you consider how much investment is going into this area. Just last week here in the EU, there was an announcement around the Green Deal. Between the Green Deal and the US Inflation Infrastructure Act, there is cited over $1 trillion in the clean tech industry. $1 trillion of investment, and that all goes into the solutions like these. So without further ado, I am very happy to introduce Jeremy Foster to take you through sustainable data centers.
Thank you, Denise. There's some folks back there looking in. Feel free to come in, grab a seat. Let's cram in here and talk a little about two of my favorite things, sustainability and the data center. Now, when you think about the space and what the data centers have done for us, they've done some amazing things. Like imagine your life if you didn't have the data center. Phone wouldn't be very good, it'd be a lot different. But it also uses an amazing amount of energy. And that's why it's such a great place to start making a big dent in those initiatives that Denise was talking about at the beginning. It's the big blue bar there, by the way, at the bottom. So how do you put that into motion? Well, the first thing is you want to work with vendors like Cisco who build our equipment from the word go to be sustainable. And we'll talk about that. The second thing is you'll have to deploy that equipment. And so how do you take advantage of that biggest consolidation possible in your data centers as you go through it? And the last thing is when the fun really starts, which is once you get through the deployment, now you have to manage that data center. And what about sustainability? And how do you do that? And how do you keep that top of mind for the next 5 years? Well, we'll start with the basic building blocks and some of the things that we're building. This is Nexus 9800. It's a new 400 gig switch. It's part of a new 400 gig lineup. And 400 gig's great, 100 gig's great. What it'll allow you to do is reduce the number of ports you have, which automatically is going to help you reduce the amount of power that you're using, which makes sense. But this is using Silicon One, which is new technology that we're bringing throughout the entire Nexus lineup, which is very power efficient. Just an example of the types of things we want to build so that as you select building blocks, you know you're going to end up in a great spot. The next one is UCS. UCS-X is the most sustainable server platform on the planet. There's a million features, more than I can talk to you about right now. Of course, it has things like 100 gig end-to-end networking, again, reducing the amount of ports. Has 60 different zones for cooling, so that as you're actually using the system, it's smart enough to know where does it need to cool down, and cools down where it needs to, as opposed to just having all the fans going all the time and not being super efficient. So this has been our fastest selling server platform ever, and it's something that we keep at top of mind is sustainability when we're engineering equipment. So we just wanted to talk through those briefly. Deployment. So what's it look like when a customer deploys these types of solutions? We'll take this large financial customer as an example. Almost exactly as Denise described, they have net zero initiative 2035, trying to figure out how do you sort through the data center and move through this in phases. The first phase was 500 servers. Those 500 servers were about 2 to 3 generations old. And when you look at the consolidation ratios and the type of outcome that they're able to deliver, I mean, the results are huge. So if you take today's modern equipment, you're talking about this customer going from 500 servers down to 136 servers. That's basically 2/3 reduction in the amount of physical space required inside of that data center. But what's even better about that is they also saved all the other things that you need to support the environment, like the software costs, 27% off the software that is associated with operating that environment. 39% off the maintenance and support within that environment, ultimately yielding 31% reduction in the overall amount of power that they would be using inside the data center. So while you may be thinking, wow, these are big numbers, but you said 500 servers, that's a lot of servers. The ratios I'm talking about, the numbers you see on the screen, doesn't matter whether you apply them to 50 servers or 500 or 5,000 servers, that's what the technology drives, are those kinds of consolidation ratios that you should expect as you're looking at modernizing. Now, how do you operate that environment? And this is a lot of new stuff here that we've really been working on. I think something you should be looking at as you're looking at the tooling and the infrastructure as well is how do I operate it and how do I keep sustainability at top of mind? How many people are familiar with Intersight? A lot of the folks up front. So what is Intersight? Intersight is our infrastructure management platform that covers compute fabric, and networking together. And what Intersight really does is it's a SaaS-based platform, so it lives out in the cloud. It allows you to do and helps customers do things like stay up on security and compliance, proactively support the environment. In other words, let's say you have a memory DIMM that's going to go bad or an SSD that's about to go bad. We can actually tell you before it fails so you can take it out of service and avoid any type of downtime. But what types of features we've been adding is around sustainability. So with our workload optimizer, you can actually make sure your workloads are running in the right places within that virtualized environment to make sure that you're using it in the most power efficient way possible. And you'll see in the next few weeks us deliver some sustainability dashboards to that tool, which really give you a nice way to visualize how are you doing on your sustainability journey as you're working through your Cisco Intersight and server network and storage. Speaking of network, Nexus Cloud. Nexus Cloud is a new service that we just delivered, announced a few months ago. It's currently also in tech preview. It will, and does, run on top of the Intersight platform. So it's an example of us bringing Nexus and UCS kind of networking compute within the data center closer together. And some of the most important features are things like this example you see here, which is the dashboard that talks about sustainability. And you can see some really interesting data, things like not only how much you're spending, but where is your spend going based on the utilities that are near that particular data center. So how much of the power is coming from wind, how much of the power is produced from solar, how much of the power is produced from nuclear power. And you can get these types of breakdowns in effectively real time, which is really pretty neat. And speaking of Intersight, a lot of the folks in the back of the room didn't know what it was. We have an instance that primarily is in Americas. We're really, really excited to announce that we're going to have an EMEA instance that's entering tech preview in the next 90 days. So anyone here who's interested in Intersight or Nexus Cloud can get a local instance and have local access to that here in EMEA. And the last thing we wanted to talk about here is our sustainability offer. So if you're out thinking about how am I going to consolidate, maybe I should look at some of these newer modern tools, UCSX is available if you're interested in purchasing a few servers. We've actually put together a package where we give you the rest of the infrastructure, the chassis, the compute fabric, and we've included the services to help you get up and running with Intersight. It's a web page. It's really easy to use, but it's important that you can learn some of the higher end features, right? And then you can get a really great discount on Workload Optimizer with the sustainability dashboards that I talked about, and those implementation services will include that as well. So if there is any question about anything, you just head over this way, look to your right. You'll see the hybrid cloud section within the world of solutions. The Nexus and UCS is all there. We're ready to answer any questions. And thank you very much. Denise, I will turn it back over to you.
Thanks so much, Jeremy. So data centers consume about 1% to 2% of the world's electricity today. Smart buildings and workspaces and the built environment represent 37% of the world's greenhouse gas emissions. Now, this, of course, includes steel and concrete and other things, but the built environment and the ongoing operating use of electricity that goes through all of these buildings represents 37%. So while data center is a major opportunity for the ICT industry, the built environment is a major industry for the world at large. Remember, I talked about ecosystems and IT and OT converging. Well, to play off of the platforms that Jeremy was talking about, smart environment automation continues to play into buildings as well. You may or may not know, but the typical building manages over 30 different systems in its day-to-day. Between HVAC and security, think about all of the systems you need to talk together. Now think about all of the systems sucking up and consuming energy. And what better thing can you possibly put to connect all of those things together inside of a building than the concepts of networking, right? Visibility, insights lead to some analysis and hopefully some automation. So we are working in this portfolio to really bring together the consolidation of power and data on the same line. I'll talk a little bit more about that. And then the overall integrated fashion of sustainable design. So how do you build circularity into an overall process? If we think sales cycles are long in a refresh cycle or for switches, just think about the sales cycle or the development of a building. So let's start with sustainable design. The integration of what creates this hybrid work environment or this future workspaces, again, that consolidation of all of these systems into one, we look at a platform like Cisco Spaces that's reading from sensors, and now we're looking at contactless, touchless, HVAC systems, occupancy. How many of you have recently gone into an office that was on, cold, or hot, and there weren't very many people in the office? The concept of always ready but not always on is something that we are building into our platforms, right? The ability to take every endpoint and every device and connect it to the network is something that we're looking after as a way to consume and more, like less electricity, but make it more energy efficient. When you think of the safety and security of these buildings, there's so much that goes into every environment, whether it's stadiums, buildings, airports. All of these things need to have the flex to go up and down with occupancy. And COVID has taught us, in addition to just the physical safety, there's also the proximity safety of, when we needed more social distancing, or you wanted more HVAC or more air filtration, what's happening on the outside. All of these things work together. One of the technologies sitting at the backbone of smart buildings is our Catalyst 9K series. So you look at Catalyst 9K in that switching portfolio, you look at the access points, you look at the Meraki portfolio, and then you look at Cisco's industry-leading 20 years of power over Ethernet. Power over Ethernet is something we came out with many moons ago, but it takes power and data on the same line. Now, the limitations of PoE is it goes up to 90 watts. But today what we're seeing and what we've built into many of our own offices is we're taking switches that are smaller, compact, fanless, putting them up in ceilings and enabling new use cases to power lights, window shades, automated desks, and all sorts of new things that, again, because you're connected to the network, will allow you to conserve energy. Not only does power over Ethernet make it easier to navigate from a networking perspective, it is a much simpler cabling methodology. So if you are familiar with anything that goes into building a brand new build, you have a lot of steel and a lot of copper wiring in the conduit. All of that is removed. You may or may not be familiar that native, clean, renewable energy is DC native. Power over Ethernet is also DC. So without having to do the conversion of line loss, AC-DC, AC-DC, right, depending on how many times it takes to get from your generator to when you're flipping a switch on, now you have cleaner, more efficient energy. Getting that visibility into an overall building also allows you to have more automated control. In our One Penn office in New York, we retrofitted a building that was built in 1972. And in 3 years, we've seen close to 40%, right, 39% of an overall energy consumption. That it does not take into account the thousands of pounds of steel that were saved, copper that was saved, conduit that was saved. Not only an experience from a workplace perspective that actually draws people into the office. So in that one floor of the building, there were close to 20,000 pounds of steel that we removed from all the copper, all the ceilings. And when you see all of those connection points and all of the PoEs come together in this one room, it's so simple and it's so elegant. and it's safe, right? You don't require all of the same amount of electricians to go through and wire that up. But let's take you through a couple of other examples. When you look at the built environment, sometimes you don't have the luxury of taking everything out and completely rewiring. So in our Singapore office, we simply did a retrofit. We replaced all of the lighting to be PoE. We created more collaborative workspaces, right? Lots of video endpoints. And then we maximized the space. Again, Singapore, not a whole lot of real estate space, but this is drawing people back into the office for a better experience, occupancy load, and now we can start to control the energy consumption and measure that. For those of you who aren't getting on a plane to New York anytime soon, this is a VR code with an actual VR experience that you can click, and it will take you directly to the lobby of the Penn One office. You can walk around, look around, and click on the various technologies and see how it plays. What I love about this is there are 5,000 endpoints in one floor. And you can see how all of Cisco's technology, again, it's Meraki sensors, it's our WebEx devices, it's of course our Catalyst switches, all working together for a completely different working environment with a large conference room, a small conference room, a huddle room, and all of these things that you don't necessarily think of, but when you're there and you start to collaborate in it, it really works. One of my favorite rooms in that building feels and looks like a living room. So the people on the other end of that, there's no desks, there's no laptops. It really is a collaborative workspace, and it's designed as such. Another room there, some of the desks are actually built to fan out, so it's not a rectangle, so that the view in the screen, if you've ever sit at a table, you can't see people at the end if you're on camera. This is literally designed to be able to see every single person in that room. So there are these small things. Think about what I said, the ecosystem partners. There are new ecosystem partners that are coming. Furniture that can be connected to the internet and monitored. All of these things are coming into play. A little bit closer to here is 22 Bishopsgate, which was a brand new build. Partway during COVID, they built it up, they tore it down, and then they said, we want to go with a fully integrated design that will have the latest and greatest technology to not only make it a collaborative workspace, but to have all of these integrated systems work together. So the building management system, the HVAC system, the security system, these all work together to maximize the number of use cases in that building for, again, both hybrid work and efficiency. How many people remember the heat wave last summer across Europe, but particularly London? In that building, there's 62 floors, beautiful view from the top. 62 floors, one tenant in one floor said, we do not want to automate our window shades. Every other floor said, please automate to your heart's desire, the glass, the solar, everything was built in to be automated to raise the blinds up and down at the particular times of day. After that heat wave, that one floor had double the cost of electricity bill for that 1 week. And the data laid it all out because it was all integrated into one building management system. So I encourage you. I'm actually heading after Cisco Live over to Canary Wharf for an outdoor, again, kind of a working living space of the future, because there's some other projects back in the States that are leveraging that technology. The third solution that I referenced in the beginning is really around the Internet of the Future. And for those who may or may not remember, a couple of years ago, Cisco announced Silicon One. We're taking that Silicon One chip and all of the efficiencies of that chip and expanding it across the rest of Cisco's switching portfolio. Not only does that increase the energy efficiency, reduce the footprint and the shipping costs and all the things associated to it, but it allows the actual internet at its core layer to be more sustainable. So we're building and working with everything from our service providers to our governments and our major enterprises at every point in the network to help for a more sustainable and scalable solution as more and more demand for our internet continues. This morning, if you had a chance to catch the keynote, you would have seen a couple of very great industry examples and how this comes to play. The one thing I would call out is sustainability must be integrated into the business. There is a massive shift in what our research is telling us just in the last 12 months from regulatory and compliance not only to helping the bottom line, but actually helping the top line. And that's very visible when you look at industry solutions, because industries aren't going to stop, right? What we need from our medical facilities, what we need from our stadiums as they come back online, how we travel, even airlines are less predictable today than they were before COVID. And the integration of all of these IoT devices, visibility into the network, security, all of these things working together. I had an opportunity to visit. I live in California, wine country that had outfitted IoT sensors and water leakage across their fields, and you may or may not be familiar, but California is in a perpetual state of drought up until this last season. And so water leakage is extremely costly and can cost an entire crop, an entire season. So what we're starting to see is the application of sensors in all different places, whether they're mega factories, in agricultural. The regulations that are coming out in EV alone is going to move the needle and allow for the stimulus money to accelerate all of these solutions in these different ecosystems. In the EU, after 2035, there will be no more gas-powered gas cars sold, right? Well, what does that mean? The infrastructure and the technology has to be able to withstand the transition and be ready for that. So there is so much opportunity across these industry solutions, across these ecosystem partners, and I hope at a minimum your wheels are turning at where are those potentials? And hopefully, Cisco can help you along that journey, right? Where is Cisco going to help you along the journey, and how are we together going to tackle the next trends of the future? There are a couple of key things I wanted to call out here because sustainability, clean tech, they're going to introduce a lot of new skill sets into the market. They're going to call upon skill sets that we didn't quite think may have intersected with IT once upon a time. And it's going to take all of us to educate, make more aware, and to bring others along on this journey. So first is renewable energy systems, right? We know clean energy, we need more and more of it. The cost of clean energy is actually at par, if not cheaper, than our traditional coal-powered. That's the first time, and that's a recent that's recent data that's come out. Cloud managed sustainability. Jeremy walked you through Intersight and Nexus Cloud. You saw earlier today the WebEx Control Hub. We are helping across our entire portfolio build an energy management ecosystem of data to help you get real-time views of the grid, the energy mix, the cost per kilowatt hour wherever you are. It's a fun, interesting thing to talk about, to ask someone where they're from and what their cost per kilowatt hour is of energy, particularly in this last year. It's become very dynamic, right? It's not a commodity that we all take it for granted anymore. When we think about this concept of putting power and data on the same line together, we're effectively networking energy. Imagine the concept of energy networking and what that can do to all of our existing IT systems, combined with the expanded TAM and the expanded opportunity of the ecosystems of OT. And then eventually imagine a DC microgrid. Imagine building or retrofitting a building where you have solar coming right off the glass of a window that you may not even own the building, but it's coming right off the window and powering your desk and all the lights in your office. The technology for all these things exists today, and how we move forward and how we put it together is going to be underpinned by this backbone of technology and that intersection of networking. I'm going to leave you with two things. First, Cisco is on this journey with you, and we are committed throughout the entire life cycle. When we think about what buying models are available, how you move things as a service, we're incentivizing with 5% up front to give our product back at the end of its useful life, because Cisco, in its #1 supply chain, can guarantee 99.9% responsible recycle, remanufacture, and reuse. And I still have yet to see another company that can offer that. It's so exciting. We actually have a demo of it right there through the hub to walk you through what that teardown process looks like. There's also, I want to call your attention to 4 and 5. Working with our partner ecosystem, we have a specialization, and we also have a number of organizations that are keeping track of all of the stimulus money to help you unlock that stimulus money. It is so critically important that we try to simplify. I mean, we know, yes, there's a lot of money out there, but I heard from many partners and customers just yesterday how cumbersome of it is, how much paperwork, how many rules there are. We have teams in place in countries around the world working with these organizations to unlock and match our technology and these solutions to help you take advantage of these programs. And last but not least, this QR code will take you to an ebook that walks you through in great detail all of Cisco Solutions. Feel free to grab that and save it for later. There are 17 sessions across Cisco Live in the next couple of days, so please keep a track of those. The demo lounge that I mentioned in that other room has 6 different stations, and there'll be tours ongoing for the rest of Cisco Live. And again, last but not least, that ebook will continue to be updated with every big event that we have. So if you take that QR code and you save it, it will continue to get refreshed, but it has in great detail all the programs, all the solutions that we walked through today. I cannot thank you enough for being here today. If it's not really clear, I thoroughly enjoy my job and my role, which is to embed sustainability into all of Cisco's products and solutions. But I can tell you it is not something that can be done with any one vendor, any one company, or even just the folks in this room. So I encourage you to learn more. We're just getting started. This is going to be a long journey. The last year, if it's any indication, the amount of growth in this topic and this area just continues, and it doesn't look like it's going to stop. So thank you. Have a wonderful Cisco Live, and I hope to see you soon.